Let me do this one more time. Looks like it worked out pretty good last evening. Creating a video on the cell phone. Yeah, so what happened yesterday? I was skimming through some emails and came across an email. Somebody sent me a video that they cut from a video from 2 days ago, saying they caught something come into the picture and disappear. I looked at it, I'm like, holy shit, that looks pretty bizarre. And then, so I went to the video on YouTube myself and went and found that it was at 5 minutes and 17 seconds, I think is when it started. And sure enough, that object appears and then disappears behind me in those clouds. Pretty odd, right? And of course, I instantly texted it to my friend Dave Pilatus, and he just instantly wanted to give me shit for going hunting by myself where I'm going. He actually has 2 different cases of missing, very abnormal missing people where I'm going. Whatever. So I got my InReach recharged yesterday, and I'll turn that on and I'll let him and Sarah, another friend of mine, track my movements. But anyway, getting back to the topic here. Yeah, so I guess once I get home in a couple weeks, I will grab that original video clip and I'll throw it up on the editing program, and we'll zoom in on it and play it slow and enhance a little bit and have a bit of a better look. It's kind of unnerving, right? It's a little unnerving. And what I can tell you about that particular area is it's one of the biggest hotbeds for Sasquatch sightings that I know of. And that area is the Duffy Highway between Lillooet and Pemberton, British Columbia. And that is facing the southeast side of the highway, where a few of my Indigenous friends have told me they don't go anywhere around there anymore. And as well, another friend of mine, very A-type outdoor sports person, had 3 friends building a recreational cabin basically right underneath where that thing appeared. And he went out of the cabin to get some water, saw this 9-foot tall gray hair covered thing standing there looking at him right there. And the list goes on, right, as usual. Pretty odd, isn't it? Sure would suck to have one of those things decide that you're a hitchhiker and needed a ride. Right? But anyway, what else? Oh, quick note. I forget where I read it, but it's been in my head ever since. I had someone email me from, I can't find the email. I searched the word search on my email. I can't find it in any of my email addresses. So maybe it was possibly messaged to me on social media, but it was a family, lifelong outfitter with outfitting history family. And you live between Dawson Creek and Hudson Hope. And you mentioned that I would be welcome to stop by and meet up with you guys if I was up in the area. And I've been trying to find that email so I can email you and line that up. So if you are watching this video today, you know these people, email me again, all right? And title it Meeting Up. And I am very interested in coming and meeting you guys and talking to you guys for a while. I think that'd be very, very interesting. So I do have to go past your place to go do a live podcast in Dawson Creek sometime in the next couple of weeks. But anyway, before I start babbling too much, let's get on to some shares here, man. Sharing people's words should be the priority, especially these days. And listen to this. Surprising story from a 93-year-old mom. Now listen, if I screw up or mess up, I can't edit it up on this phone. So it's full-on raw, no editing. You got to bear with me, all right, you guys? One more sip of coffee ought to help me. All right. Hey, Steve, hope all is well. I want to thank you for putting yourself out there for all of us. It's so hard for me to tell my experience to strangers and even family members. At least strangers will ask what you had been smoking that day, where your family members just give you that look. Excuse me. I'm so sorry here, but Mr. Macaroni. I'm sure he is in a beautiful pasture and looking down and waiting for you, so you two can do some exploring. Please don't mention any names or places. I won't. I hope I don't. But the key is, for all you out there thinking about emailing me, if you don't want me to mention something, don't put it in the email. all right? Because obviously I'm going to start reading down the line here. And if you do have something in there that I was supposed to remember, not to read out loud, well, it's almost like a trap for me. I'll try not to now that you mentioned it, all right? My mom doesn't want her name on any of these new electronic devices. It's probably a very smart move. This is also the first time for me hearing this story, and I'm 57 years old. I spent time in the woods from age 10 till now. I was telling her about your webpage, what it's consisted of, and what you're trying to do. I guess it triggered her memory that she had forgotten, and it had come back to her. Now my mom is 93 and doing well for her age. She remembers her whole life. She may repeat it 20 times, but it never changes. So here it goes. Back in 1953 or 54, my mom and her friend worked second shift in one of the many textile mills. They had gotten off and were heading home. Each were driving, and her friend lived about 10 miles further out. The friend told her that she was about 2 miles from her house when she noticed this large dark figure crossing the road ahead of her. She had slowed down, and all of a sudden she hit something. She got the car stopped, stepped out to see what she had hit. In her words, she had hit this hairy kid. He was rolled up in a ball and had fuzzy gray and highlighted reddish fur. It was crying in pain. She said, crying. Anyway, she said that she could tell it had a broken leg. Meanwhile, she said that she was getting bombed with screams coming from the woods and very close. She said she went to check on the kid. The kid said it looked to be around 10 and looked as if it was in great shape. She had nurse training, and she went back to the car for a first aid kit. She said that when she came back to the little boy, it acted as if it trusted her. She managed to straighten out the leg and get some kind of stabilization on it. She said she knew she had hurt it while trying to help it. But she said, looking into its eyes, that it seemed to trust her, even though it was in great pain. It managed to keep down how it was feeling. She said at times the first figure, or what she said, she figured it was the first figure would scream so close to her that she felt it was on top of her. The lady knew she couldn't take the child because what or where would she take it? But she knew that she had made a physical contact with this child and she felt like it trusted her. Now the other figure that was raising hell had her scared to the point that she thought she would never leave that place alive. But things changed, and it seems that the child was speaking to the other large person and was calming it down. She said that she sat in the road holding this child when this figure appeared. She said there was nothing, and then she was there. She said that she didn't know how large it was, but she said there was no way for her to protect herself if it wanted to get her. She said as it walked toward her, it had the look of one very pissed off mother. She said the lady, and you could definitely tell it was female, bent down, grabbed the kid behind the neck, lifted it up, and got the child in her arms, looked down at her, snapped its teeth, and walked towards the wood and slowly vanished. Skip ahead to around the 90s, and the friend was in the hospital and dying. My mom went to visit her. And the one big thing on her mind was, did the kid survive? She really hoped so. I hope this does some good. I tried to write it the way it was told. The story surprised me more than you'll ever know. Mom has never been known for her stories, so this was definitely different. I hope this helps someone out there. Steve, I don't think you know all of what you're doing. So many people stuck with these stories in their heads. Many don't even feel comfortable to mention to family. It can really eat at you and cause damage to relationships and to family. Thank you. And I hope you're able to keep doing what you love and never forget we appreciate what you are doing and that you're always able to stand strong. JBC. Thanks for the kind words, but more importantly, thank you for sharing that story, man. Holy crap. What an experience. Isn't that weird that the mother of that thing would be a little standoffish? I mean, you would think, okay, let's just take a grizzly bear, for instance. If you plowed into a frickin' bear cub and got out of your car and went and picked it up, mom would be on you in about 1/10 of a second. Period. Even a moose, a cow moose at times, which are very dangerous. But what an odd point made there that being was a little standoffish, spending more time making racket in the background well, you would think it would have been like bolting to grab that little thing from in front of the car immediately and possibly backhand the human out of the way, right? What a crazy thing to see, experience, and then have to keep it secret from the frickin' sheep so that you don't get ridiculed. Well, thank God there's no more ridicule, right? Thanks again for sending that. Thanks for the kind words. And again, you hear anything that people could use for knowledge, send it in to me. All right, what do we got here? So many. I'm on my old phone, thank God, so I'm getting to people that have been waiting for some time to be heard. Hi, Steve. John Bartholomew from Queensland, Australia. On the subject of Dogmen, I've seen something like it, and it put the wind up us one morning while going out deer hunting. I caught something running through the grass coming towards the road and said to my mate, "Look, big pig coming." Well, when it hit the road, only about 30 meters from the car, it wasn't a bloody pig, but something that looked just like a bloody werewolf. We both agreed on that. It wasn't happy at all. Also found this in the same paddock, which you attached a photo, and I won't be able to, I'm going to hold that up to you guys right now. All right, let's have a look at that. Can you see it? So that is a very twisted chunk of tree. A little bit of force to do that. All right, that's one way of sharing the pictures, isn't it? Oh, that's it. That's the end of the email. Okay, that's a little different. Thanks for sending that, man. A little bit of a description would have been handy for anybody living in the same area that wanted to possibly match it up with what they saw. All right, what do we got here? I always mark everything as a red, so I don't do it twice because it makes everybody so angry. Hello, Steve. Thanks for providing this service for those of us who know about the other beings and providing a forum to tell of our encounters. No problem. I live in Gonzales County in Central Texas. I grew up in the county of the ranches and oil fields of South Texas brush country, where the monster whitetails are. My father, grandfather, and uncles and their friends were old-time brush popper cowboys and oil field hands, honest men doing honest hard work. That's how I was raised. Hunting, trapping, and fishing were as much part of life as gardening, raising chickens, and having a milk cow. Being a ranching family, we had horses, and I get your bond with yours. Everyone I knew had seen or heard unexplained things in the wild. My great-grandmother talked about the woolly bugger and warned us to be careful in the woods. Her folks came from Tennessee and knew about them. Dad's father, who lived next door to us, was from southeast Oklahoma and had Choctaw heritage. Those people also were well aware of the forest tribes. My senior year, we moved to Gonzales County, where my mother's family had roots. I stayed here into my early 20s and moved back recently after decades living and working in Austin. This and surrounding areas are rolling hills of post oak and mixed hard and softwood thickets and pastures with lots of rivers, seasonal creeks, and large man-made ponds called stock tanks inland from the coastal plains. There's grain farming, ranching, oil extraction, as well as thriving hunting industry. I became interested in cryptids after hearing local legends and stories and having friends who witnessed them. Two women I know back in the 70s saw a large Sasquatch beside the road near the entrance to the Palmetto State Park in the village of Otene on the northern edge of the county. It was around 2 a.m. on Monday, and they're returning from a weekend trip. They said it was illuminated in their headlights as they came around the bend. It was very tall and big, standing straight up and still covered in hair, and just watched them pass. These women were a physical and occupational therapist. We all lived in Otene and worked at a rehab hospital there. It was originally a polio treatment facility built around natural hot springs. There was a lost palmetto swamp there, and at one time had geysers and mud boils, or did before the water table went down due to water well drilling on local farms and ranches, and all of oil wells near Luling, where one of the most recent 401 cases happened, as reported by David Blias. The Otene monster legends go all the way back to pioneer times. There's one story about a nighttime raccoon hunt with dogs. The men were near the river when they were suddenly met with loud growling and howling screams. Their dogs were freaked out and scared. They fired shots off in the general direction of the sounds, which were followed with more howls and the sound of trees being broken and shoved aside. The next day, they found a trail of 100 yards long of broken and pushed over brush and trees up to 6 inches in diameter that happened in the 60s. Everyone still knows the men involved. All descriptions match Sasquatch and reported appearance. There's at least one resident of the county currently living in the Lakewood area about 12 miles south of Otine who claims there is one around there now. This is near the confluence of the Guadalupe and San Marcos rivers. The lake itself is no longer there as the old dam collapsed. Also in this county is the town of Nixon, which has reported sightings listed on the BF website reporting map. There's other types than Sasquatch. A friend was driving between Hallettsville and Eagle Lake across the two counties east of here to fish when something strange ran across the road in front of him. It had an extremely long humped snout with canine-type teeth. He said, definitely carnivore-type teeth and tall pointed ears. If it had hair or fur, it was short and dark, but it was nighttime and raining. Its front legs were much longer than its hinds, and it had a tail. It had large eyes. It was 4 to 5 feet long between the front and back legs, and if standing on hind legs, would have been well over 6 feet tall. It ran across the highway at close range. It looked my friend in the eye the entire crossing. He was raised in rural areas and is a hunter and fisherman. He was no known wild or domestic animal. This was sometime in the last 10 years or so. I'm still speaking about him with it, so we'll be gaining more information as I think of more details to ask about, such as gait, shape, legs, and feet, etc. It wasn't his first encounter. He'd seen a juvenile Sasquatch on his grandfather's property near Stockdale, kneeling in a creek. Another time he saw the same or a larger one walking from a field into the woods at another part of the property while he was deer hunting. His sister reported to the BF, who followed up, but they were never harassed by them, probably because so much time had passed since the sightings. Back in the 70s, I myself saw the famous South Texas big bird as it came over the Warm Springs Hospital and eastward across 183. A woman who worked in the facility's kitchen also saw it. Neither of us officially reported it, and there were no further sightings. We were several hours' drive from the original reports, spread over several days almost a week earlier. That's not all I have seen. I'm 67, semi-retired, and drive for a living now, and keep my eyes open and watch the sky. I saw something very big and very unsettling a few years ago that changed how I view reality. As you say, I no longer need proof, but that's not a topic you want to cover, so I'll leave it at that. I do believe that, in whole, scientists are honest and science is valid, but there's many things that we just don't know enough about to understand. I also think that most people in government are trying to do the right thing. But some in power have knowledge they are not sharing for whatever reason. I also believe that, one way or another, disclosure is coming. I don't care what anyone thinks about me anymore. I know what I've experienced and seen, and believe my friends. You can use my name if you wish. Thanks again for standing up for us, Rick Shannon. Rick, without people like you, we would not be doing anything here. So thank you for taking that time and sending that in and sharing your knowledge with the people, all right? It's much appreciated. And I hope that there's people in government looking to do the right thing. Tell you what. What did I just do? Oh, there we go. Thanks again for sending that, man. Send more if you think it's going to help anybody, including your neighbors. You send it in to me, all right? Hey, Steve. Steve only. All right. So I got a whole paragraph only for me. Prefer anonymity. All right. Call me Ishmael. Not my actual name, which matters little at all in the scheme of things. So Ishmael suffices nicely for the purpose of sharing the story. All right, man. But first, a few thoughts about things mentioned in this show. Regarding why people go out of the woods seeking Sasquatch, I believe it to be similar to motivation to why UFO hunters or those seeking interactions with fairies or ghosts do what they do, none of which I discount, by the way, far from it. Essentially, this search, I believe, is an expression of the search for God. The quest for an experience that will convince them beyond all doubt there is mystery underlying existence and something more than the facts and routines of mundane daily life. Call it a romantic quest for gnosis, an experience transcending all doubt, producing knowing. thus the fervor and dedication to the pursuit by some. I know it, as I dealt with it much earlier in my own life. A problem, though, is that some things which one might come to know are so unbelievable that one is essentially no better off than before. And regardless of what one comes to know, there is still work and family to be dealt with and cared for in the morning. There is no great transcendence to be had by experiencing Sasquatch or UFOs or any of that. No satisfaction, only added cares and considerations that once acquired never go away, and new questions, always that. Now, I think it is wise to honestly ask oneself how much one really wants to know, needs to know, or can live happily with experiencing before seeking any of it. Some experience of a certain kind takes the happy gloss away from life, and a feeling of comfort can be lost and never regained its entirety as a result. But the quest for gnosis is like getting married. We often make a mistake and proceed on the wrong path because of our inexperience. Your phrase, the club of no return, summarizes this better than inexperienced people can truly realize. It's not just words, it's a reality. May no longer understand, though, that words can actually be used truthfully and with veracity and without sensationalist intent or hyperbole. Listening to stories about certain things is entertainment. Encountering them for real is anything but entertaining. People may think they want the truth and deserve it and can handle it, but too often the truth is 9 feet tall with fangs and glowing red eyes, knocking at your door in the middle of the night. And when you open that door and see it, it cannot be unseen, though one may wish that it might. So true is not to be trifled with or rushed at with abandon, but must be approached in circumspect and quiet manner, with the same degree of steady caution as one would employ when searching for a rattler in a woodpile. Truth can bite and bite hard. My take anyways. Regarding government silence or cover-up such as Sasquatch, I think the underlying principle of this is that which cannot be controlled cannot be mentioned. I think that probably holds a lot of water. I truly doubt anything more nefarious than that underlies it. But the government does indeed know about these beings, and I'm sure that you and many of our listeners know that the government knows too, but we cannot speak of things told us in confidence by others who have trusted us or which ourselves learnt under oath of secrecy. This is real life, and nobody's entertainment should come at the loss of another's career incarceration. So some things get told in private whispers, if at all, and to people who can actually use the knowledge, not just be entertained by the hearing. I've had a few anomalous experiences in my 65 years, which I would like to share as they may be pertinent as a point of reference to someone sometime who experiences similar. Just pieces of a puzzle. Throw them into the junk drawer. You might find a use for them later. This is the particular story I wish to share now. I live in a little town in Colorado, which I shall refer to here by the fictitious name of Smith. People familiar with Colorado would probably easily determine its identity, but at least I won't have directly contributed to an influx of people tramping up into the mountains, getting themselves lost or worse. Smith is nestled in the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Once a gold mining town. Deer, fox, bear, eagles, coyotes abound, and cougar pass through. UFO sightings are not uncommon here, but my story is not about that. I lived barely outside the town limits of Smith in a little cabin for a decade or so. My calico cat, Sweetie, would routinely chase black bear away. I've never figured out what odd detent allowed for that, as they surely could have her for lunch if they'd wanted. The cabin was 100 feet or so away from a creek. One Sunday morning in 2006 or 7, I forget which, but I recall it was in August, at about 5:30 a.m., I was sitting in bed reading and drinking a coffee. There was a grove of tall aspens, pine, and a few cottonwoods west of the cabin, separating it from the county. Reloading a mile up in a campground, county road, the vacuum out in the hallway just caught my attention. Sounds like they're cleaning up the hotel. We're going to have to grind through it. Separating it from the county road, leading a mile up into the campground. The grave is 150 feet wide, roughly. The grove is 150 feet wide, roughly. As I am reading, I hear something skimming the treetops of this grove coming my way. My burst of thought ran along the lines of UFO skimming treetops. I heard something pass through the air above the cabin, and a split second later, sounds of something large landing in the old cottonwood, 100 feet or so away in the derelict, overgrown field abutting the cabin to the north. No engine sound as it passed, no flapping of wings. Just the sound of something large moving through the air, if that makes sense. Best I can describe it. When the window went to the window, comically half expecting to see some sort of flying saucer wedged in the top of the cottonwood, but nothing. Nothing. Weird, I thought, and shrugging my shoulders, went back to my book and coffee. In a few minutes, I became aware of limbs and branches being broken in the old tree. Every 2 or 3 minutes, a branch would be heard to break and fall to the ground. This all began around 5:30 a.m. and continued all throughout the day. Regular intervals of 2 or 3 minutes, snap of a branch, thud of said branch hitting the ground. I kept a curious eye on the tree throughout the day, unable to see so much as a porcupine or bird in it. Nothing visible was in it. The weather was still, no breeze. I sought to identify any possible factor which might have been responsible for the phenomenon. My perplexity grew as a circular pile of slash began to accumulate around the tree as the day progressed. Naturally, I started wondering about the predator, as in the Arnold movie, but I could see no telltale shimmering, nothing. Around 2:30 p.m., my pal C, who was in a walking cast recuperating from a badly broken leg, dropped by for a visit, bringing with him a few bottles of cold, store-bought iced tea. He sat on a bench and I on a bucket outside, and I told him of the mysterious ongoing events of the day. We sat in silence drinking the tea and watching the tree together. Every couple of minutes, a branch would be broken and fall down onto the slash accumulation. After 5 or 10 minutes of silence, C said very quietly, "You're right, something's in that tree." But like me, he could see nothing. And like me, all he could think of was predator, though he couldn't determine any shimmering either. Though due to his bad leg, he couldn't accompany me, bolstered by his being there as a witness, I crossed the old rusted barbed wire into the field and slowly advanced to within 50 feet of the cottonwood, where I took up a position to study the tree. As I stood there, seeing nothing in it, a branch about 12 feet long and as big around as my wrist broke off and was tossed in my direction, landing outside the circle of accumulated slash and pointing directly at me. I say tossed, not thrown, as the branch did not travel with great velocity and landed 30 feet short of me, though directly on a path that would have reached me, had there been more energy behind the toss. It arced out and away from the tree in its flight. No way was it a natural breakage and fall. Getting the message, I turned around and slowly retreated, a bit stunned and bewildered by what had just occurred. Once over the barbed wire, though, the bewilderment changed to anger, a typical hominid response, I guess, LOL. Though not in any way a church-going man, I have my simple beliefs instilled in my childhood. And standing there, I said in short prayer aloud, asking God to bind whatever was in that tree in Jesus' name. Steve, this is the weirdest part of the story. The branch breaking halted immediately and never once resumed in the year or more I remained in that cabin. It was like turning a light switch off, so abrupt and final, the cessation of that activity. I'd like to say that this was the end of the story, but there is a most interesting coda to it remaining. Typing this out one letter at a time on an old iPhone was grueling, believe me. And I get it, man. My pal A lived less than a quarter mile away, and I told her of the invisible monster in the tree a day or two after the event. Soon after I'd moved out of the cabin, A emailed me. "Hey, you remember that story of the invisible monster you told me about?" I did, so she told me her story. Her adult stepson, who she had never told my story to, his wife and another couple were out walking along the greenbelt near their home on one Sunday, about 6 miles from my cabin. They all saw something walking down through the tops of the trees, breaking off branches as it went, invisible. But unlike me, they saw a shimmering figure exactly like in Predator, the movie Predator. I have to believe her stepson's report, having known him since he was in high school, a serious guy who grew up to become a construction contractor and family man. I suspect that whether or not one sees the shimmering has to do with the relation to the sun, the thing, and the observer. I suspect that if the sunlight is coming from behind it, or just at the right angle, one notices the shimmering. There's a couple more stories I'd like to share, one having to do with what appeared to be dinosaur tracks in the snow, but enough for now. Thanks, Steve, and best wishes to you and your family and friends. Keep on keeping on. Ishmael. That's one hell of an experience and detailed recollection to share with us. Shit. Another new one, right? That exact same thing's been described. Thousands of people now. It's nothing I don't want to experience. Definitely nothing I want to run into myself in the next couple of weeks. But if it does happen, it happens, whatever. You know, the movie Connection. It's funny, I had a friend of mine years ago who was always a big, he's a fan of all the old time and new time Star Trek shows, and always said to me nonstop, every single thing that they had or did in Star Trek basically has come to be reality today. And then you got to think too, is a lot of movies in Hollywood, they've depicted a lot of things in the past that have basically come true today. That's somewhat alarming, isn't it? Especially if you start diving down other rabbit holes and accumulating information and figuring out how everything's attached, what's going on the dark side of the planet. And we have been given tidbits of warnings and heads up about the dark side of Hollywood for some time now. And a lot of the alarm bells that have been raised a handful of years ago have come true the last couple of years with Hollywood pedophiles, sex rings, etc. There's no denying it. The cover-ups, the power of Hollywood, and you got to wonder just what they know and what they knew. And if you possibly look at it from different angles, it's almost as if Hollywood has made movies with various tidbits dumped on us intentionally to make sure that we think it's just a Hollywood fantasy, when it's turning out today that a lot of these fantasies are actually realities. Go figure, right? It just makes you look at everything from a different angle. But again, take from it what you will or leave it, right? If it causes you to blow a gasket and knee-jerk react emotionally, this probably isn't the right place for you. Now, what else do we got? So many frickin' emails. I don't even know how long this one is. I guess we've been babbling over half an hour. I'm gonna get one more in here, and then I gotta get going. The business that is I'm waiting for is open. It's time for me to get my ass out of this indoor shit and get back to the real world. Start filming stuff and getting that moose in the truck. All right. What do we got? That's probably a little too long. All right. See, I'll go down the story, see how long it is, and I'll try to hopefully skip ahead a little bit and see if it's actually experience and some help that somebody needs. All right, this is titled, I Am Tired of the Shit. Aren't we all? All right, I'll read ahead because you started off with your full name, and then I'm going to read ahead a little bit to see if all of a sudden you later on add in, don't use my name. And I don't see that yet, so I'm going to go ahead and use your name. Hello, Steve. My name is Thomas. I live in central WI. WI, is that Wyoming? In a little town called Wanawak. My wife and I had a nice acreage by Dutch Hollow Lake. We had a nice fish pond in the front yard, surrounded by trees and such. We kept a wide walkway around it, mowed just big enough to get the Kubota tractor around. The pond was 385 feet long, 85 feet wide, and 18 feet deep, with 2 underground springs. This sounded familiar. I might have read this. Anyway, one end bordered the neighbor's property. My pond was all 30 feet higher than theirs. My overflow went down a creek and through their pasture. Their pasture was very overgrown and thick. One night, yeah, we read this. Yeah, we got this one. Sorry, I don't know why it wasn't marked as red. And see, and then I would have edited that out. Oh, there's a bunch in here that have been red, I believe. What do we got here? This is titled Help Me, and that really gets my attention. Mark this as red. I'm writing to you to see if anyone else has had similar experience. I'm not sure if this fits with Bigfoot, but the alternative explanation would not be so good. It was 1972, I was 13 years old, 8 miles east of Snohomish, Washington. It was a nice summer day, so for something to do, my cousin and I went for a ride on our 10-speed bikes. After a couple of miles, I got ahead of Dave by about 2 or 3 minutes, so I stopped to wait. In 72, this area is very rural. The closest house was a half mile away. Where I stopped was under some power lines. Behind me was the stand of mature trees. In front was just bushes and really small trees. It was less than a minute when I heard, in very weak and frail male voice, "Help me." I looked around, still sitting on my bike. I could not tell the direction the voice came from. After 34 seconds, again I heard, "Help me." But this time the voice sounded a little louder, without the inflection of pain in the voice. I still can't figure from which direction the voice came from. About now I'm looking around for Dave. He finally rounds the corner and rolls to a stop and starts rattling along how he got stuck behind a car. I told him to shut up. Within about 10 to 15 seconds, we both heard it, "Help me." This time, the best way to describe it was louder and way more powerful. This time, I felt like the voice was coming from behind us. We looked at each other, and I don't know who said it, but "Let's get out of here." We went about 5 miles and stopped, and about all we said was, "Weird, huh?" That was it for the next 40 years. So there is a part of me that wonders what if somebody was laying in the weeds all left up and I left him there. But the way the voice changed from weak to more emphatic to powerful, to me was just too weird. This whole thing only lasted about 3 or 4 minutes. I'm not sure if the voice is internal or external, but listening so intently, there was no other noise that I remember. I had to ride the school bus home and went right by the spot this happened. I never had strange feelings there, but 500 feet down the road where the clear cut stopped and the forest started again, you could not see more 10 feet into. And I always got a strange vibe riding by. I tried to include as many details as possible. I believed in the Sasquatch from a young age, but my mind never went there. It's more like a pervert / kidnapper / murder. Some of your subscribers have talked about hearing voices, but not actual words, unless I missed it. JC. Okay, JC, well, let's hope there's not a human corpse laying there in skeletal form today, right? Oh my gosh. Bit of a different share. But anyway, I gotta get going. It's time. So, where I'm going, there's a lot of oil work, natural gas exploration. And I think I remember last year having service in a real weird, unexpected place in the middle of what should be frickin' nowhere. So if that happens, then this channel is going to get quite interesting shortly. Share my story at howtohunt.com or tell my story at howtohunt.com. You get it in, and if it can help you or help somebody else, I'm going to share it. And don't forget that family that lives between Chatwin and Dawson Creek, email me. All right? I'm going to come see you.